In this tutorial, we're going to look at the application properties. So I'll open up a new application, new, and then I'll go, if we click the name of our application here, then we can see in the properties panel, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger by dragging the panel up. Now we can see our properties. For the application properties, we have 6 little folders here. We have settings, window, runtime options, values, events, and about. So first we're going to look at our settings. We have our first option here is our graphic mode. If we click here, we can see we have 4 choices for our graphic mode. We can choose 16 million colors. We can choose 65,536 colors, 32,768 colors, or 256 colors. If we go down to 256 colors, then our application size would be decreased by a lot, because it wouldn't take up as much space to store that many colors. If we go to 16 million colors, you can have pretty much any color that you want, but the application size will be a little bit bigger. So that's graphic modes. And we have our build type here. For build type, that shows the kind of application you want to build when you go up to the file menu and you choose build and then application here, whatever is selected here will be built. So if you have standalone application selected here, then when you choose application build here, then it will build a standalone .execute file. If we have our screensaver selected here, then it's going to build a SCR file. If we have an internet application selected here, then it will build an application to be used with Vitalize, which will be a CCN file, I believe. So here we have build file name. To this, whatever we have selected here, we have this ... here. We can choose a file name like that, or we can just type in a file name that we want it to build. We can browse here for where we want it to build the file, and then we can name it here, and it will add the appropriate extension if it's a .execute or a .scr, sorry. And then we have our image filters here. The image filters, if we choose edit, it's automatically selected on automatic. We can unchoose that, and then we will be able to choose what filters we want to include in our application. So in order to reduce the file size, if we didn't have any GIF files in our application, then we would want to uncheck this box. And then we would want to uncheck all the boxes for the ones that we don't have. If you're not worried about file size, then you will probably just leave that selected on automatic. And the same goes for our sound filters. If there is no .mod files, then you would uncheck that. Just gonna leave it on automatic, like that, and I'll press cancel. And then here we have our install settings. We're not going to look at install settings now. We'll look at that in the install program tutorial. Compression level here, we can choose a normal or a maximum compression. The maximum compression will take a longer time to build when we choose to build our application because it will have to compress them. Then we have our compress sounds option. You can use it to gain space in your built application. If the option is selected, then the wave files or any samples that you have will be compressed into into I think it's ADPCM format, and that will reduce reduce the size of those wave files, because as you probably know, waves files are very big. We have include external files here. If you this is if we have any, such as when we looked at our background picture object, we remember that it would use the file. It would go to that file to look for the picture, and it would always be accessing that file. If we selected include external files, then it would put that file inside of the executable file or the SCR file or whatever file type we made of our application. Then we have compressed the runtime. This is, we're not going to look at that right now. So let's go to our, let's look at compress the runtime. Okay, so if we compress, by default we have our runtime is compressed and extracted to a temporary folder when we open our application. It can cause problems, and so if you uncheck the box, then that could prevent those problems. If you uncompress it by unchecking it, it will be a little bit larger, not by much. So then we have our run options here. We have we're not gonna look at these right now. The show debugger, we'll just look at that. And these two, see, when we run our application, we see this little window here, this debugger window that shows how many objects there are and how much of our RAM, which is random access memory, is how much of it is being used. So if we unclick this box, then when we run our application, we can see we don't get that window. And then this is to enable or disable the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, let's go on to our next tab, the Window tab. Here's where we can choose the size of our application. You can, if you click, you can choose one of these sizes that are automatically, or you can edit these here and make your own custom size. Then we have border color. we can make a border. If we choose one of these, then we'll have a border. So if we choose purple, and then if our frame, if we ran our application, well, I'm gonna have to make one change here really fast. If we move this down to there, okay. And now if we run our application, we can see we get a border. If our current frame that we're on is a different size than the application, then the area around it will be in the color that you choose in that option. So I'm just going to change this back to white, and I'll move this frame back to the default. Okay. And here we have heading. This is for if we want, well, let's see, if we unclick this and then we run our application, we can see we don't have the heading like we usually have. Like on normal Windows, in Windows operating systems, we have this heading on the top of the windows, such as the Multimedia Fusion window has this heading. If we can choose whether we want a heading, and then we can choose whether we want a heading when it's maximized. So I'm going to uncheck this. Now we can see that the application's not maximized, but then we maximize it and we can see our heading went away. Close this, and now we can quit. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Disable close button. You can use this option, and the close button of the window will not work. So if we run our application right now, we'll check this first, and now we'll run our application. Now we can see this button is not working, so we're gonna have to quit by using this. And then I'll uncheck that. No minimize box. If we check this and run our application, we can see that the minimize box is disabled and we cannot use it. If we do no maximize box, that's pretty much the same thing, except for the maximize box is disabled. The no thick frame, this well, let's see. If we check it and we run our application, we can see we have a thin frame. If we uncheck it and run our application, we can see that it's thicker around the edges. So, now we have maximized on boot up. That's obvious. When we open our application, do we want it to be maximized, filling the whole window or not? And then we have hidden at start, which will make the application hidden at start. The menu bar, when we run our application, this here is the menu bar, and it has these options here by default. Menu display, we can uncheck this box and then we won't have a menu bar. If we have this box checked, then we can choose edit here, and we can edit the things that are inside of our menu bar by using all these different options here. These lines here are separators. We also have item. We can insert an item. And then we can edit items and delete items. And then we can save menus and then load menus for later. Then we have menu displayed on boot up. If we uncheck this box and then run our application, we don't have a menu bar here. But we could get it later using an event or an action in the event editor. Then we have the window menu index. We're not going to look at that. We have options here. We can use change resolution mode. This mode is to make the game full screen on any computer that uses it. So what change resolution mode would do, it's going to temporarily change the resolution of our screen so that it's the same resolution as our program. That way when we run it, it is it's completely full screen. We have allow user to switch from full screen. Well, let's look at this one first. Change resolution mode. Run our application. Now we can see the application is full screen. And we're going to have to use Alt F4 to exit out of that. Let's allow user to switch to and from full screen. We're going to look at this. Okay, and now let's run our application. And now when we press, now that's allowing us to switch to and from the full screen mode. Resize display to fill window size. This is, if we check this box, then no matter how we stretch our window, it will stretch the application so that it's the same size. Do not center frame area in window. This will, if we have none of these other options here about resizing selected, and we make our window big, then it will automatically bigger than the size of our frame. Then it will center the, if we make our window bigger than the size of our application, then by default it will center the actual application. If we do not center it, it will put it in the upper left corner. And then we have our runtime options. We can choose frame rate. This is the number of frames per second. You can choose anything from 1 to 1000, and so if we made this 100, then it would produce a faster application, and if we made it 1, it would make a slower application. During every frame, the application will check for each of the conditions in the event editor. We can choose machine independent speed here. This will skip frames if it will skip display of a frame if the machine is too slow to display it. Instead of showing all the frames, it will skip frames so that it stays at the same speed as it would on a faster machine. It will just be skipping frames. Then we have run when minimized. This is so the application will keep doing the same things that it usually does even when it's minimized. Run when resizing. So if we were stretching out the frame of the frame size, so let's do application. If we start stretching it out like this, would the application keep running, or would it be paused while that's happening? Then we have do not stop screensaver when input event. So default, if we run a screensaver, we know that if we move our mouse, then the screensaver is going to stop. We can check this, and then the screensaver won't stop if we press the keyboard or move the mouse. Do not share data if run as a sub-application. This is to prevent other applications from accessing the global values or global strings or anything that's within your application. Sound options. We can have, if we have multi-samples selected, then we can play up to 32 samples at the same time. If we do not select it, then it will only play one sample at a time. Play sounds over frames. You can check this to continue playing a sound from one frame to another. So you might want to have music playing while the transition to the next frame is coming on, and you would check that box to do that. Do not mute samples when application loses focus. That means if we minimized our application, then would we make our samples stop playing and not ever play the samples, or if we check this, then the samples would keep playing even though the application is minimized. Next we have our display options. The display modes we can use. We can use the standard display, then we can have DirectX, and then we can have DirectX plus VRAM, which means video RAM. Standard is for a normal computer, which uses the default drivers to display the image. If you select the DirectX mode, it's usually slower than the standard. If we have this, then it will be using the video RAM to display the images. We have this, and by video RAM I mean the RAM on the video card of the computer. After that, then we have VSync. This so this will synchronize the application with the display. Enable visual themes. So this will work if you're using Windows XP. It will synchronize with the themes of your computer. This option also is in Windows Vista, I believe. So if we added a button, let's go to interface, and we added a button, and now we run our application. We can see this is the themed button of our how we have our XP themed. If we go to application and uncheck this box, then we're just getting this default button here. So this option will work Windows XP or Windows Vista. Let's go back to where we were. I'm gonna recheck that. Now we have initial score. We looked at these before in our score counter tutorials. We have default controls here, so we can choose the keyboard player 1. We can then choose what buttons they're using. If we just click on one, then we could press a key, and then we could see it would be changed to that key. I'm going to cancel and cancel. And then we have so here we have preview. This would let us display a picture in a Vitalize application. So you would just insert, so when a Vitalize application is loading, then we could add a picture here, and then that picture would be displayed while Vitalize is downloading the things it needs to run that application. Let's go to our values section here. We have global values and global strings. We've already looked at global values. Global strings are very similar. We're not going to look at them right now. And then we have global events. Global events are going to are events that apply to every frame in the application. So if we wanted an event that made us go back to the menu, say we pressed the enter key, then we always wanted it to go back to the menu no matter what frame you're on, then we would add that event in the global events editor. You just click edit and then you're in the editor. Then we have one more tab here. We have name, and then we can choose we can choose the name of our application, which is shown application. This is where our name of our application is shown when we run our application in the title bar. So if we change this to test, and then we run our application, then we can see now it's called test. Icon we have here. We can click here and choose edit, and then we can change the icons that are shown when we're using our application. So we have here, it's in different sizes here. We have for the different graphic modes that you can choose, these are the different options that we have. See how this has this nice little fading red here, and then this one does not have that. So I'm just gonna press cancel there. Then we can choose the file name here, which is the file name of the application. Then we can have a help file. When the user, let's run our application. Oh, we have to go back into here and let us have a menu bar. Now let's run our application. Now we can see if we choose help, this contents thing will be if we here choose a text file. Then when we run our application and we choose help contents here, then we would be able to see the text file. So if I choose a file here, Let's just find a text file that I have. Sample. We made this in our formatted text tutorial. There we go. And now, if we run our application, then we can choose contents, and we can see it opened that text file for us, for our contents. Author, you can enter your name here. Then we have copyright, about, box text. We'll just put test here. When we run our application, and then we go to about, then we can choose what it says in this box here. Author, we can choose, let's just put in Bob. Okay, copyright 2007. And then we can have a description, tutorial, company. You could add a company. Let's just say that the company is Game World, or just making something up, version 1.0. Okay, now let's run our application. If we go to about, we can see some of this info here. That's going to be all for our properties tutorial, for the application properties.